Alright then, welcome back guys to a new episode of the Hidden Agendas podcast. I'm the host of this podcast, Amir Akram. We have a lot to get into today. Apologies once again, I did not upload yesterday or the day before. I was simply quite busy and have a lot of essay work to do for university. But yeah, I want to get straight into it. I actually think that I missed like a lot of detail that was supposed to be talked about, mentioned in the previous episode about, Lily J. She was insulted by a certain preacher, which I mentioned, Sam Shimon, about, the 14 versions of the Quran, a fallacy, I believe. I missed a lot on that, but hopefully I won't miss out that much today. Today, in this episode, I'm going to be talking about conspiracy theories, September 11th, and I'm going to get into the JFK assassination and maybe even the USS Liberty attack done by Israel. Many people say that that attack was deliberate. It was no coincidence. It was not an accident. It was deliberately done by I believe, was it the Israeli Air Force or was it? No, I think it was the Israeli Navy. Yeah. So I actually want to first get into September 11th and debunk some claims. So we have a lot to get into when it comes to September 11th, like, you know, um, Building 7, the way the buildings fell, and many witnesses who claim that no plane flew into the Pentagon, but it was a missile. And many even are raising questions. How come so that the US Air Force did not intervene and, well, not crash the planes, but, try to, hit the plane and make sure that, this type of attack doesn't happen? Because there were passengers in those planes who were in there, right? Obviously. But the US Air Force could have done something. US Air Force One, sorry, that's the president's plane. The US Air Force could have done something to intervene, but they did not. And many intelligence agencies have claimed that, if not claimed, then stated that the former US president, George W. Bush, knew about the attacks, but nothing to prevent it. And amongst, the rift between the politicians, Democrats and Republicans, many who assert that it was Bush's fault that 9/11 occurred, while some even say that it was Clinton's fault, Bill Clinton from, the 1990s, that he did nothing to prevent the attacks. Well, aside that, I believe both were at fault. Bill Clinton and George W. Bush, they did nothing about those attacks. They simply let their own nation to be attacked. And I believe that the US knew about these attacks for a long, long time, since the World Trade Center was created in the 1970s, right? And, you know, September 11th, 2001, a huge historical moment in the United States, which pretty much, I would say, changed the US, changed the world. Many people believe that someone who would look like me, a brown guy with a beard, who has certain religious beliefs, is a potential threat to the state. But I'm going to have to sit and say that, no, that's not true. There are many American Muslims who are law-abiding citizens who still adhere to their faith while adhere to the laws within the state they live in. Same thing with me. As a Muslim, as a Pakistani Muslim, I condemn any of the stuff that Muslims do, which is bad. Drugs, alcohol, sexual exploitation with the scandals that were just revealed. So yeah, as a law-abiding citizen of the UK, I believe that London, the UK, is a great city. It's a great country to live in. And I do condemn any of the sick stuff that Muslims do. But you got to understand, putting Muslims into one box, thinking that they are responsible for the things that happen in the world, is fallacy. It's fake. It's a fake argument because it's not true. Like, there are many Muslims out there, and this is something I actually might have mentioned, but I didn't expand on it much, is the notion of so-called radical Islam and Islamic terrorism in Europe that exists or persists in the US and other places. And I'm going to have to say that this is false. I don't really believe that there's a notion called Islamic terrorism or radical Islam. I'll have to sit and say that probably there are misguided Muslims who do not take the Quranic verses into context. When you don't apply context, that's when you look like an idiot. No offense, at least. So, many Muslims out there, like me, we debunk this claim that Muslims do such a thing, which is not true. We don't do that. Yeah, there is violence mentioned in the Quran, but by definition, Islam has violence in it. So does Christianity. So does Judaism. Now, I don't want to call myself a religious expert. I'm still learning, but you got to take certain religious texts and historical events in context. That when you are attacked, you have every single right to defend yourself. This is why they mention jihad. It does not mean holy war. It means self-struggle. And other times, it does refer to violence, but in the context of self-defense, like the Palestinians. And with all due respect, the Palestinians, their houses have been robbed, their people have been killed, their resources have been taken. This is a systemic apartheid state. This is Zionism for you, which, by the way, is just like Nazism when it comes to ideology. But if we're talking about what we've seen on the internet, many don't even believe the internet most of the time, but they are live footage of the buildings in Gaza being bombed by the Israeli Air Force. That to me is genocide. That is an oppressive state. You're telling me that a 4-year-old Palestinian or like a young kid who's a Palestinian throwing a rock at a tank is the terrorist, apparently, and the state of Israel is not. I mean, I've been to Palestine. I've been to occupied Palestine. I'm not going to call it Israel because, a state like that shouldn't even be existing. It's a violent state. Like, yeah, I mean, my own country has done stupid shit, and I condemn that. There was a moment where I hated being Pakistani for what my country has done to others, like India, Bangladesh, Afghanistan, but, that's aside the point. So, yeah, I'm rambling here. I want to get into the September 11th attack. So, 24 years ago, on the 11th of September, 2001, at 8:46 a.m., a plane crashed into one of the towers of the World Trade Center. Of course, many people assumed, well, at least tried to figure out that the first plane that hit may have been a potential accident, a horrible accident. But when the second plane hit around, 20 something minutes later, then people started to articulate that this second plane cannot be a coincidence. No sane person would say that this is an accident. They would immediately think that no, it happened twice. It's an attack on our country, and of course, you have every right to defend yourself, but you also have to understand that many people who are experts and building these buildings, I believe they said something like jet fuel cannot burn cement. It can't be burnt or something like that aside. So what they try to say is that jet fuel can't burn these type of material or objects, these raw materials. The the thing that balances the buildings, the cement, I believe it was. Not so sure, but I have to get into that. They said that jet fuel doesn't burn the cement. So, and the way the planes hit those towers, to me, it felt like there was a bomb in there, especially with the second plane. Second plane may have came hard, like fast as well, but I do believe something in that building triggered a big, giant explosion. Same thing with Flight 11 when it hit one of the towers of the World Trade Center at 8:46 a.m. I kind of also believe that there was a bomb in there, and even Building 7, which fell down by itself hours after the World Trade Center fell, and that was without a plane having to hit it. And many people are confused that how did it fall by itself? We all understand how carbon dioxide, sorry, carbon monoxide reaches to every house when there's a fire, right? But you can't just sit and say that carbon monoxide, and due to the aftermath of the World Trade Center falling, was when the smoke and all that came into Building 7. Many people are still asking, how did it fall by itself when it did not get hit by a plane? Nothing happened to Building 7. It was fine. This morning, at that morning, it was fine at 8:46 a.m. Even when the World Trade Center was being hit, Building 7 fell by itself. And the fact that nothing even happened to Building 7 in and of itself is enough proof to many that the September 11th attacks was nothing more than just a staged attack. And I believe that it was used as a pretext to invade other countries elsewhere, especially in the Middle East. Iraq, Libya, Afghanistan, aside about these radical Islamists and all that, Iraq was attacked after the September 11th attacks, right? Iraq had nothing to do with September 11th. Saddam Hussein, as much as of a horrible dictator he had nothing to do with bin Laden. He had nothing to do with, weapons of mass destruction. You can't really invade or attack a state who have weapons of mass destruction, like India and Pakistan. No matter how bad of a country they are, economically, militarily, you can't really attack a state that has nuclear weapons. You can't really attack a state that has that type of, massive military power. Sorry, bombs, right? You can't do that. It doesn't work like that. The US and Russia both have nuclear weapons, probably more nuclear weapons than any other country combined, but they don't attack each other, even though I guess they hate each other in a way. But my point is that September 11th, 2001, to me was used as a pretext, as a false flag to invade countries in the Middle East, Iraq, Libya, Yemen, Lebanon, all these countries who are not even that friendly towards the Israeli state. I also want to get into Israel for a second as well. Like the dancing Israelis, sorry, the dancing Israelis who were watching the World Trade Center burn. And according to witnesses, now we don't know what these witnesses saw. If I could go to these witnesses in New York, I do not know where they are though, and ask them, but as per themselves, as per these witnesses, they have stated that they saw these people. I think it was 5 Israelis, 5 people who saw the World Trade Center burning, smiling, laughing, and even dancing about it. And that raises a lot of concern. What happened was that I think they were going to be deported to Israel. Well, before that, sorry, they were going to get prosecuted, or not prosecuted, but what do they know about this? Why are they dancing? Why are they smiling to the World Trade Center getting burnt, right? What's funny is that I think the lawyer or the agent trying to defend them was also a Jew. Now, and that raises a lot of concern, right? And I believe that there was an Israeli after the World Trade Center got hit on the ground who said that we're gonna catch these people who have uh, done this, and she said that I'm Israeli. Now, I don't know about you, but isn't that why is she mentioning her nationality? Now, I don't know if you've seen that video, but there was an Israeli on the ground who, when the World Trade Center got hit, after I believe after it collapsed, she was mentioning her nationality and said they were going to catch the guys who did it. Now, I guess many people would assert that we still don't know if it's a terrorist attack, and I don't know if she mentioned the nationalities of the people who've done it, but there's more concern about the people who have done this. Now, the official story is there were 19 hijackers in all 4 of those planes who had specific targets. The 2 planes, the World Trade Center, 1 plane, the Pentagon, and I believe the 4th plane was Washington, D.C., the White House in D.C. Now, the passengers in Flight 93 heard about the World Trade Center being attacked in New York by their loved ones. And then that's when they concluded as well that, that this is an attack on us. So they prevented that plane from hitting the White House, right? And unfortunately, all of them died. And there's more concern about, the 19 hijackers. And the official story is that it was bin Laden, Al-Qaeda, who perpetrated this, and they're hiding in Afghanistan, ruled by the Taliban. Now, many people are asserting, I don't know who exactly, okay? Now I have to investigate this myself, but many people have raised this theory that the 19 hijackers were not Arabs and they were not Muslims, but they were Israeli. Now, this is not my claim. Many others have said this. People who have tried to intercept the voices of the hijackers, they claim that they were not Arabs, they were Israelis. They sounded Israeli. That's per them, right? I'm not saying that, that's what they believe, they're right about it, but that's what they believe, right? That's what they intercepted. That is what they analyzed about the hijackers, that they were Israeli. Another thing is the insurance cover of the World Trade Center. Now, I'm not sure people know this, but the owner of the World Trade Center, a certain man known as Larry Silverstein, a Jew, who had breakfast pretty much every single day, every morning in the World Trade Center. Why is it that he has an appointment or something on the morning of September 11th and he does not come in? And when those towers collapse hours later, he takes a huge insurance cover out of that, which happened to cover terrorism. Now, that to me is no coincidence, but he got billions of dollars from that insurance claim. Billions of dollars, right? Now, I don't know how that is just a coincidence. That's no coincidence to me. And many people have even asserted that there were no Jews in those buildings. That's not a single one of Jewish heritage. Sorry, not a single Jewish person was in the World Trade Center. So yeah, many people finally assert and have stated in their official claims as conspiracy theorists. To me, conspiracy theories are just facts hidden by the government. That the ones who really perpetrated the attacks was the state of Israel. Why is it that Benjamin Netanyahu, the former prime minister and the current prime minister of occupied Palestine, said that September 11th is good for Israel? He said that September 11th is good for Israel, right? And George W. Bush never mentions this. Neither did Bill Clinton, neither did Obama, neither did Biden, and neither did Trump. They don't mention this because I believe that these politicians, these presidents, these former presidents are no one but puppets of the elitists. The elitists, the Freemasons, are, to me, these families who rule the world's economy, who control the politicians, control the celebrities, and control all these guys to make sure that they have one secular world order where you do not follow God, but you follow your own desires. Satanists, in a way. The Rockefeller family, a Jewish family, and the Rothschild, who are another Jewish family. To me, probably the biggest families who are not only rich, but have so much influence, have so much power, and also have authority. But no one knows about these families. So, of course, maybe for the average American, you were told to believe that Muslims are responsible for these attacks because, it's mentioned, this is what mainstream media has asserted, that it's in their holy text, it's in their holy book to kill the infidel. Yeah, it does say that in the Quran, but it's not pointing to the Christians or the Jews. It's pointing to the pagan Arabs of the time of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Now, you've got to understand that, the Quran was revealed during the lifetime. Quranic texts were revealed during the lifetime of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. There were people who hated his message. His own tribe, his own people rejected his message. An uncle of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was against his message. It's even stated in the Quran that he is condemned. The Prophet's uncle, he is condemned, right? Because he was a pagan Arab, and so were others within the region of Mecca, right? Which was then, at that time, run by polytheists and pagans, right? So, yeah, instead of blaming religion, we need to look into context. We need to look at exactly why these Muslims are doing this, and can we really call them a Muslim? Because, false media assert that, every Muslim is pretty much a conservative, far-right religious Muslim, which I'm going to have to beg to differ and say that, no, that's not true. I'm a religious Muslim. I don't have any extreme views. I'm not saying that you guys should all die. I'm right. I'm not going to shove my religion down your throat. All I can say is, in Islam, we have one God and one God only. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is the messenger and prophet of God. We should take him as a role model because, people who don't even have a great upbringing can take the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, as as a role model. For example, be fair when you do business. Do not charge interest, for interest is not good for one's finances, right? Be good to your mother, be good to your dad, be kind to your aunts and uncles, because your aunt is like your mother, right? So, yeah, just a few examples. Also, I want to mention briefly now about the JFK assassination. Now, there was a lot of issues between JFK, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, between himself and the CIA. I believe the CIA wanted to attack its own state. They wanted to attack the US state, right? America, and frame it on the Cubans. Now, we all know the rift between Cuba, America, and the Soviet Union, the height of the Cold War. Like, the Cuban Missile Crisis almost brought World War III. But, thanks to effective decision making, critical thinking, and, you know, peace talks, that an eventual World War III was prevented, right? So, regarding JFK's assassination, so JFK's CIA, well, the CIA, wanted to attack the United States of America and frame it on the Cubans. Now, of course, JFK, like many presidents up until Bush Sr., were anti-communists, right? And they didn't like the Soviet Union. Of course, JFK didn't like the Soviet Union, but he sure as hell wouldn't agree to that plan to kill your own people and blame it on the enemy. That's illogical, right? It's injustice. Forget about Cuba. It's injustice to your own people, right? So JFK said no to that. Sorry. And I believe JFK also opposed the Israeli nuclear program. And I believe after he died, the state of Israel developed nuclear weapons. And I don't really find there's a coincidence. Regarding his supposed killer, I say supposed because I don't really believe, Lee Harvey Oswald killed JFK. And apparently he did it himself. He was alone when he did it, right? But I don't believe that. There's much more to this rabbit hole. You can't just sit and say that Lee Harvey Oswald killed JFK when he even said that I did not kill the president. And why is it that when he says that, maybe, I don't know, maybe in that same day or a day later, he's killed by Jack Ruby. So it's clear that Lee Harvey Oswald didn't kill JFK. He wanted to explain it in court, right? Testify. But, as soon as he said that I didn't kill the president, he got killed by Jack Ruby. A day or two later, like, why did you have to kill him? Let's hear what he has to say. So there's much more to that rabbit hole, right? And with JFK, many people have asserted that his own vice president was behind, the attack. Because, LBJ, Lyndon B. Johnson, was a huge advocate for the state of Israel. He, many people would say that, LBJ likely got JFK killed, but that's still another theory, which I still have to investigate myself. But, all these events happened in the past. The official stories just don't add up. We can't say that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone in the height of the Cold War. Like, this was the peak, right? These two countries, the Soviet Union and the United States, were about to kill each other through World War III with the Cuban Missile Crisis. Cuban Missile Crisis is another thing, was not exactly related to JFK's murder, but it's similar. It's not related, but it's similar. The official story is that the Cuban Missile Crisis does lead to JFK's assassination, but it's not really the Cuban Missile Crisis that leads to his assassination, or it does, but briefly, right? JFK did not want to kill his own people, but the CIA insisted, and because the CIA realized that no, JFK is not going to go through with this. They killed him off, and the USS Liberty attack on by Israel in the '67 Arab-Israeli War, which was what 4 years after JFK got killed, and that ship was. Many people have said that it was deliberately attacked. It was no accident. Many people have asserted that the Israelis saw the American flag clearly and yet still attacked them. We don't know why. We we don't know why. We don't know how. But the official story is that it was an accident, which I don't believe in. And LBJ most likely ordered that attack. So these guys are not our friends. It's not safe to say that they are our friends. The politicians, the presidents, the prime ministers, they're working for someone else. They're working for a secret society who are not our friend at all. They would rather, kill us off than even dare to be friends with us. And it's a bit funny how many of, the politicians are in support of the state of Israel. How the people who run these disgusting industries, like, Hollywood, the porn industry, the music industry, are all Jews. I'm not trying to be anti-Semitic, or maybe they're Zionists, right? But think about this. Zionists are never criticized, but other people are, and that does raise a lot of double standards in it, right? So, got to understand why these people are doing this. Keir Starmer, I also believe that he's a hypocrite. I also believe that he's a member of the state of Israel. He's not, like, he's not he's not one of us. But I'm going to conclude this episode, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.